Welcome to another episode of my podcast that's fine with me. Look at this gorgeous makeup look. I went full board today because we're going to talk about fashion. We're going to talk about creative directors. We're going to talk about some weird stuff that's going on today. And I was doing my research. I was doing my investigation. I'm not a fashion guru. I'm not into like real houses and structures, how people create some beauty and fashion. I'm more into makeup, but I'm very curious, and sometimes I'm very into fashion houses, fashion collections. That is the main reason why I was like, okay, let's dive deeper, because I saw a couple of Instagram videos, a couple of short videos talking about creative directors, specifically Karl Lagerfeld, smaller brands, smaller businesses, and what is a real problem of 2026 that we're currently into. I'm going to get started with a myth, with a very beautiful image of creative director, designer, whoever, from a film, from any fairy tale, sitting behind a table, late night, sewing something, creating a vision, and then finally getting this beautiful outfit on runway. Or another great vision of when we were teenagers, when I was a teenager, I remember I watched Project Runway, where a lot of these designers, they were forced to create something, then saw this, and then even create a makeup whatsoever within 1 day, 2 or 3 days, which is crazy in my opinion. And of course, sometimes there were very, very weird looking stuff, and sometimes it was very decent, at least for the amount of time they provided, and especially with the challenges they were given. That is the main reason why you're creative director. And I used to think that creative director has to know how to sew, but it's not true. Creative director right now is someone who can charge you $4,000 for a bag, for a vision, creating just a mood board from Pinterest or Tumblr. And yeah, we're gonna dive deeper. Let's dig deeper. Okay, first and foremost, I couldn't skip on Karl Lagerfeld. Karl Lagerfeld, rest in peace. He was a visionary. And I'm going to go to Devil Wears Prada, second part, quite a lot in today's podcast, because I feel like it's very important to show the diversity of what is happening right now and what used to be early 2000s, like 2006, 2026. It's not going to be about Devil Wears Prada. It's going to be about creative directors, but the reference is going to be there. Karl Lagerfeld, he worked for Fendi, and then he worked for Chanel for a long period of time. For Chanel, he was a creative director, and he had a massive background of experience. He was very educated. He read a lot of literature. He knew art. He knew architecture, by the way, and he was into fashion from early days. Of course, his classic outfit was black and white, but for others, he created for Chanel very elegant, very sophisticated looks, and everything was coming from his head. He didn't know how to sew. He didn't know how to create this outfit, but he had a vision, and he was creating a lot of sketches. Up to, people were seeing hundreds of sketches per week, and all of those ideas, they were floating into his mind. That is the main reason why Karl Lagerfeld is still a very significant fashion guru, that it had a vision that no one else has today, in my opinion. Of course, he had a lot of references, let's say, in his collections, but at the same time, it's almost impossible if you know history, fashion history in particular, and then you try to create your vision, some certain historic elements are going to be seen in your collection. And in comparison, I'm going to give you probably have guessed who was talking about right at the beginning of this podcast, Jaden Smith, who is a Nepo baby. Yeah, Hailey Bieber, Jaden Smith, and so much more. I would call maybe Miley Cyrus, but that's a hard topic because Miley Cyrus, she built her own name, and even her dad, he was very famous in certain areas, but I think that she beat her dad twice, maybe 3 times. She beat her dad in people that know Miley much better than her dad. Okay, moving forward. So Jaden Smith has his own vision, I'd say. Not even a vision. He was appointed as men's creative director for Christian Louboutin, which is an interesting choice. If I'm not mistaken, he's younger than I am. I'm 31, and he's how old? 18, 20, 25? I don't even know. He looks young, which is good. He has built a parasocial relationship with his audience. He knows trends. I feel like he has some interesting vision when he was wearing some house over his head, and people were laughing at him, but at the same time, he has a massive following. That is the main reason why he was hired. But you're why? Still, we have no idea why. he could be an influencer, he could be a face for this fashion brand, but why do you need him as a creative director? Because his approach, as he mentioned, is to create mood boards. He gets literally Pinterest, he gets Tumblr, and then he inserts his, I'd say, vision of like combining different pieces from other influencers or stylists, even maybe different brands, and then incorporating them into vision and then handling them to the atelier, which is weird. And people behind the scenes, they have to know what he had in mind when he created this mood board. And another point, like, how is that making him different from any stylist? I mean, stylist is basically someone who can see a runway project and then know that it's going to look really good on a particular celebrity. And that is the main reason why they have some sort of like mood boards when they know collections, they know pieces. I'm not going to state anything, but I doubt that Jaden Smith has anything to do with history, like fashion history, that he knows fashion history, that he knows any sort of like different silhouettes, how to sew. I don't really think he can sew. That is the main reason why a lot of the times people, they're paying for Jaden Smith Nepa Baby name, and the people behind closed doors that really work and they can create this vision and make this and bring this to life, they get chicken peas and they literally have to work hours and hours before runways. And you can see the difference and shift that early 2000s, probably 90s, any fashion brand could get at least, I don't know, like 3 or 4 different runways throughout the season. Now, like 4 seasons, or like, I don't even know how to call it, but like in a year they would get 3 or 4 collections, and now they have up to 6 or 8 collections per year, which is insane. They have to provide at least 2 collections per one season. And I mean, like fall, spring collection, and whatsoever. And from one side, it's really cool. From other one, it's like, I don't know, isn't this too much? I feel like it's too much sometimes. That is the main reason why we're moving to a little bit different idea, that not every single creative director has to know how to sew. And not every single creative director has to know how to create patterns or to draw silhouettes. We're going to touch on that real quick. Elsa Schiaparelli. In 1930s, she was the main rivalry of Coco Chanel, and she had friendship with Salvador Dali and Jean Cocteau. So she didn't know how to sew, she didn't know how to draw, she didn't know how to do all of it, but she could get a piece of fabric, wrap it around herself, and just create a vision. She could get a mannequin and drape it around the mannequin, get a little bit of accessories, get some brushes, and she had a vision. And that is the main reason why Schiaparelli was really famous in 1930s. It's really famous still to the day, but I mean, like, she started this journey herself without even knowing how to create and sew and raw. And that is the main reason why we're going a little bit deeper to Miuccia Prada. She has PhD in political science, and she was trained as a mime for 5 years. I'm like, what? But okay, the point is not about this. She, again, has no idea how to sew. She has no idea how to draw, but she has a vision with her team and fashion department, I'd say. And she's like, I know what's ugly and I know what's pretty. So let's define what's ugly, and we're not gonna implement this, and what's pretty from our standards, and we're gonna create a vision around that. And this approach is totally different. It's not like a mood board where they grab existing pieces. They're like, okay, so for example, yeah, feathers, they're beautiful, and puddles, they're not beautiful, they're ugly. So we're not gonna mix in puddle color or a puddle, let's say shape. We're going to implement feathers because they're beautiful. And we love birds because birds are beautiful. Something like this. And finally, we have Virgil Abloh, who is controversial, let's say, in a way, because he used to work for Kanye West, if I'm not mistaken, and he was very outspoken and he was very open about his approach. And he takes pre-existing silhouette or pre-existing material, whatever, like maybe some look, and then he's changing only 3% of this look, creating something different. And people, they were criticizing him a lot for this, which I totally get. I mean, like, I do get this, but at the same time, he knows society, he knows people, he knows movements, and he knows what people, or specifically youth culture, needs and wants. And when you know what the market wants and needs, you're gonna win the market, which he did. But it's like, it's pretty controversial because, like, changing only 3% of it, it's probably like changing accessories or fabric, maybe the color and fabric, and maybe a little bit the shape here and there. And here you get 3%, but in my opinion, it's like at least 10% of work. But whatsoever, it looks like a stylist approach than a fashion design creative director approach, but still, let's move on. I want to talk about Gucci scandal. Alessandro Michele, he is a very talented creative director of Valentino right now. He used to be a creative director of Gucci for a long period of time, and he used to work for Fendi as well as Karl Lagerfeld. But Karl Lagerfeld then moved to Chanel and, like Alessandro into Gucci. And I remember this hairy footwear, I'd call it, from Gucci. If I'm not mistaken, Alessandro created this masterpiece. Was not a huge fan ever, but he had a vision and it was always different. And when we try to compare Jaden Smith, then Jaden Smith, if I'm mistaken, has no educational background or experience in this field, but Alessandro, he has education in historical costume design that he got in Rome, Italy. Then he worked for Fendi and he worked his ass off for a long period of time. And then only he was appointed to Gucci creative director post. But at the same time, I'd say that if I'm mistaken, someone quit abruptly and he was appointed. That is the reason why you can see that a lot of very talented people, they're working behind the scenes and you don't even know them, but they can be creative directors because you know that they were literally pushing the entire collection when people like Jaden Smith, they were creating mood boards. That is the main reason why he was very popular during Gucci days. But in 2025, he released his new collection for Valentino. And Valentino Resort 2025 was controversial. People saw the same textures, materials, same shapes, same bows, something he had been doing for years for Gucci. And they're like, it's Gucci, it's Valentino and Gucci. And people didn't really like it. They said it's too much Alessandro. Because in my opinion, in my vision, I totally get that when you hire someone, you hire the person's vision. But at the same time, you have to keep a core of the fashion house. Another great example or scandal that we witnessed not so long ago, that was a collection by Pier Paolo, and people were super excited because he left Valentino. Alessandro took his place, if I'm mistaken, and then he has become a creative director of Balenciaga. And Balenciaga was always popular. Like Kanye West, he was his vision again, very popular, I'd say, for Balenciaga to have something like Kanye West, because he's crazy in a good way sometimes and in a bad way sometimes, but he has a vision for sure. And when Pier Paolo released his Balenciaga collection, people saw a lot of Valentino, and they're like, are they gonna swap designers and just hijack the entire concept of Valentino? Now Balenciaga is Valentino and Valentino is new Gucci because of creative director. I mean, if you can see my vision about this whole idea that sometimes you don't really have to get too much of your vision because it's going to be similar to what you used to do to another fashion house. What is the point to hire someone if this person is going to create the exact same thing as he or she used to do for a little bit different brand? What is the point? That is the main idea of what is going on today. A lot of the times, creative directors, they get a lot, a cut to this creative director is insane. They get millions and millions of dollars. And from one point of view, I totally get that people like Alessandro, they work their ass off for Chicken Peas and Pretty Mature lots of years in the background. And now he has a priority and he has a right, in my opinion, to get a lot of money for his work. But at the same time, when you try to get all the profit and the expenses under control, you see a weird tendency. If we're gonna grab Jaden Smith, yeah, parasocial relationship, it's really cool, though you can hire a really good PR team. So Jaden Smith, you have to pay him. Then you have to pay influencers to rave about new collection, to talk about collection. Then you have to provide samples to celebrities. Sometimes they have to pay for this, sometimes just for free to make sure that their name is out there. Then they have to pay different productions and they have to pay PR teams, PR marketing, whatever. And it takes a lot of money. And of course, people want to get profit. Eventually, conglomerates, they want to earn money. They don't want to lose money. That is the main reason why they need to invest into cheaper materials. They are not interested in good quality as it used to be. And they realize that a better option is to create something very cheap and really bad quality, and next season people are going to come with money and buy something new because the previous bag is not gonna live up to the standards of a reality. I mean, like, I saw a lot of influencers talking about Chanel. When they purchased Chanel for a lot of money, they wore it 2 3 times and the handle was off. Valentino again. I remember there was a bride and she purchased shoes for her fittings, and after the second fitting, her shoes, they fell apart. So she called the customer service. They promised to get back with some receipts or whatever, and they never did, or they did but they didn't want to pay her. That was a huge problem, and that was the main reason she's like, I wanted to invest some money into my wedding, and now I know that my cheap shoes that I got somewhere in the mall or whatever, they are so much better quality than Valentino. If I'm not mistaken, guys. I'm not. It's just like, again, according to the video that I saw a year or a couple of years ago, but I'm pretty much sure there are a couple more videos, plenty of videos, that you can find with the same result from Chanel, from Valentino, from Balenciaga, from any other brands, where the quality is really, really bad and questionable, I'd call it. So here we're going to a little bit different direction. Why would you pay influencers? Why would you pay someone, like, maybe just keep it as a quiet luxury, but when they have appetites to produce more, to earn more, and to feed conglomerates more, then you can't stop and just see a reflection of yourself in the mirror and see like, oh, I'm a cash grab. And right now, people are so pissed with the quality. But let's talk about Hermes. Hermes is a very interesting brand. A lot of the times they're criticized about the way they handle situations. They have to spend years in line, have to buy thousands of like useless products from Hermes, and only then you're going to buy for extreme amount of money some bag that you don't really need, or some bag that it's not in the color that you want to have. And the style and design hasn't changed a bit since it was created. That is the main reason why people are like, yeah, I kind of think that it's a questionable choice, but at the same time, they are the only ones that are keeping up with the quality. Today, I see a lot of influencers talking about Birkins as a quality control instead of like Gucci or Chanel bags that are falling apart in a couple of days. And that is the main idea, that maybe you should go to a vintage store, which is really popular today because you can find, let me show you real quick. I mean, I've been showing this over and over again. You can find in, for example, episode France, this is a real leather bag for 20 euros. It's made in Italy. It's in a great condition. And I'm going to tell you guys that it's going to be so much more wearable, and it is tested through time because someone wore it for a long period of time, and I have it, and it's still in a great condition. Yeah, it's not brand new. I know that some people, they have this problem in their head that like, if it's not new, if someone wore it for me, then I'm not gonna wear it. I have this issue. I don't have this problem. I love the quality. I love the price, and I'm gonna keep on investing in some vintage products if I have this opportunity, instead of some weird materials and weird quality products that are sold today. They have a decline, and I know that luxury brands, they face this issue where they look like Shein quality. And even in Devil Wears Prada second part, they had a huge scandal where they talked about some fast fashion brand and they didn't fact check it, and they got into a scandal. But you know what, Zara, again, fast fashion, and I'd say lots of their looks, they were like from Zara. Yeah, especially the dress Indy wore for this quite luxury event. She was like, oh, I'm desperate to wear it, I'm desperate. And like, no, it's super high fashion, it's so loud, it's pretty. Seriously, this dress, and Miranda, when she wore a skirt with blazer, like first scenes, I'd say maybe second, third scene, and you can see the difference. When 2006, it still looks gorgeous. I mean, I would pull off lots of the looks from 2006 compared to Devil Wears Prada 2026. It's cheap, it looks lazy, it looks like they didn't invest proper time into costumes. When it was couture and high fashion, yeah, it was pretty. I mean, like, it was really, really pretty. But day to day doesn't, I mean, like, no, that was weird. And it does give a feeling of laziness. They don't really want to create something. It's just copy paste of a previous look that used to work 10 years ago, but now maybe you can create something new, something fresh. Maybe you can brainstorm with your team and they can suggest something interesting. Creative director, in my opinion, has to listen to his or her team and maybe shift a little bit in different directions. It worked for Gucci. If we're talking about Alessandro, we're going to talk about Polo. It worked for them for a certain period of time. Right now, I don't really think it's okay. And I really loved a collection of an Indian brand that was showing architecture, Indian architecture, and in looks, it was beautiful. That is fashion. That's what we can call fashion. That's something is inspired by ancient architecture and it's heavily influenced in today's modern fashion. That's cool. And that is the main reason why I feel like sometimes we just need new people. They're not going to take that much money for their work and maybe invest in great materials that's going to look fabulous as it used to be in 2000s and 90s. People, they're desperate for some looks, vintage looks from 90s and 2000s because they had character. Right now, it's just bland and the same. Let me know in the comments, what do you think about today's podcast? What do you think about fashion in particular? Are you team 2026 design or 90s vintage 2000s? Are you team like, no, creative directors are really cool and great today? I mean, I'm not talking that every single creative director is bad. I am talking specifically about someone who needs to freshen up a little bit and maybe make a change. Nothing else. I love you all so much, guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.